Hi, and welcome back to What the Job. As I mentioned on my previous video, I've been working in banking now for about 5 years. So we thought one video which would be handy is 5 top tips for how to get a job in banking. Any questions, feel free to put them in the comments and we'll get back to you on that. So number one is the earlier you start, the better. With banking, there's lots of kind of different rounds of things that you can get involved in. So Spring Week is pretty much the first one, and this is generally when you've got 2 years left of your university course, and this is basically about usually a week, and you get to see all different divisions, and there'll be an introduction from all of the different people who work there, telling you about their day-to-day role, and often their career paths as well. So the good thing about these is that they're often stepping stones to the summer internship, which in turn then is a stepping stone sometimes to the graduate scheme, depending on how you perform during all these different things. So obviously it really does help if you start early on in your graduate degree. So to find out about these different Spring Week summer internships, this will all be on the websites of all the different kind of banks or asset managers, for example, that you're looking at. They'll have information there about the application process. Often it's kind of like an interview or a phone interview, and maybe there'll be online aptitude tests, which is one of the things I'm going to come to later in this video. Okay, tip number 2 is don't just focus on what's obvious. So I was really guilty of this when I was applying for things, and I didn't sort of branch out from what were the obvious places to apply to. So everybody knows all the sort of bulge bracket banks, but there's in actual fact so many different places when you think of finance that you can actually work. There's smaller asset management, there's smaller banks, and often people like me, there'll be lots of other people who are only applying to the big names because they're the only ones they really know of. So I guess the kind of advice here is really do your research, find out about the smaller companies. They've also got great reasons to work for them. And often you might find that there's smaller amounts of people applying to those. So maybe it gives you a better shot. It's always good to kind of broaden your options so you can apply to obviously to as many places as you want. So don't kind of exclude these smaller places from your application process and thinking. So tip number 3, as I mentioned before, online aptitude tests. I actually found these pretty hard. Some people find them really easy, but there's loads of places online where you can actually practice them. Often you have to pay to do that, but if you've got other people who you're at uni with, you can often share online logins as long as you're not trying to do the tests at the same time, and go on there and just get yourself comfortable with the type of questions that you're going to be asked to do on these tests. I think one of the things I would think is they're not actually technically that difficult, but it's often a little bit confusing exactly what you're meant to be doing. So if you go online and practice these, as soon as you see the question, you'll have a bit more of an idea what you're being asked and kind of how to approach it. So yes, it's much better to do these online first rather than throw yourself in when it really does matter. So yeah, there's just Google kind of online aptitude banking tests, and there'll be plenty of options, some better than others, I'm sure, but you'll soon work out kind of what works for you. Okay, so tip number 4 is speak to people. I think this is a really key one that sometimes isn't actually as obvious as it sounds. It always helps to find out from people who've been doing the job for a while kind of what it actually means for them and how they got it, and also it gives you much more understanding of what that job entails. So when you're going through interview processes, you can always make mention to the fact that you've caught up with somebody that works in an XYZ position, and it really does show that you've put the effort in beforehand. You haven't sort of rocked up to the interview not really understanding what the job is. If you've managed to kind of reach out to people who've done it, then that's just another tick on the kind of overall process. There's plenty of different ways you can do it. If you're really lucky, maybe you've got family friends that work in the industry that you can reach out to. Otherwise, LinkedIn is a great place to look up people. You can search for kind of different jobs that you're interested in, and there'll be people there. You can always drop people a message. Some people won't reply, but some might, and maybe somebody would be happy to have a quick phone call, and that really does show that you've kind of gone the extra mile to find out about these things. And last but not least, tip number 5. And I think this is probably one of the more obvious ones, but it's very important, so we thought we had to include it here. And that is know the website like the back of your hand. It's such an easy thing to do, and it's such an important thing when you go through the interview process that you show you've done your research. So on the website, there'll be things about the history of the place, there'll be things about what they consider important values and how that applies to their clients. Is make sure you know all these key points and try and drop them into the conversation during the interview. Sometimes it can feel a little bit cringeworthy, but it will be what the interviewer is looking out for, that you've done your research and that you align to kind of the values of wherever you're applying to. So it takes no time to do that. Just go on there, remind yourself the morning of the interview what the kind of key things are, and then have it in the back of your mind when you go in for that all-important interview. Okay, well, I hope that was very helpful. They're the top 5 things that I think are important when you're applying to a banking job or graduate scheme, internship. It all applies the same. So let us know if you've got any questions, but thank you very much for watching. Bye.